The baby that cries at night. The house on Eldridge Street had always been quiet. Tucked behind an iron gate and surrounded by towering oaks, it had stood for over 100 years, watching generations pass through its weathered doors. When the Thompsons moved in, Emma, Daniel, and their newborn daughter Lily, it seemed like any other peaceful beginning. The first few weeks were a blur of diapers, bottles, and late-night lullabies. Lily, quiet by nature, hardly fussed. She was a calm baby, rarely crying even when hungry. That's why it startled Emma the first time she heard the crying. It was just after 2 a.m. Emma stirred awake to the sound of a baby's wail. First she thought it was Lily. But when she reached the crib, her daughter lay there peacefully, breathing in soft rhythmic sighs. Still, the crying continued. It echoed faintly, as if coming from the walls themselves, or maybe the hallway. Emma stood frozen for a moment, heart thudding. The monitor was silent. She checked it again, nothing. Lily was sound asleep. Daniel shifted in bed. "Is she okay?" he mumbled. Emma nodded slowly. "She's fine. I think I just heard something." But the crying had stopped. The next night it happened again. Same time, same soft, distant cry. Emma sat upright, this time certain it wasn't her imagination. She walked through the hallway, gently pushing open doors. Nursery, bathroom, guest room. Nothing. Then she opened the attic door. It creaked, and a cold draft spilled down the stairs. The crying stopped instantly. Emma didn't go up. When morning came, she convinced herself it was exhaustion, maybe even some form of postpartum hallucination. But the next night and the night after that, the crying returned. Always at 2:13 a.m., always faint, always heartbreaking. She didn't tell Daniel right away. He was already overwhelmed with work and the baby. But by the fifth night, when she stood in the hallway with tears in her eyes, he finally took notice. "You've been getting up every night," he said, rubbing her back. "You're scaring me." "There's a baby crying," she whispered. "Not Lily. Somewhere else. I keep hearing it." Daniel furrowed his brow. "The monitor hasn't picked up anything. Maybe it's from outside." Emma shook her head. "It's inside. I can feel it." He agreed to stay up with her that night. At 2:13 a.m., the house was silent. Then, just like clockwork, the faint sound of a baby's cry trickled through the stillness. Daniel sat up sharply, glancing at the monitor. Still nothing. "You hear it?" Emma whispered. "I do," he said slowly. "What the hell?" They followed the sound step by step, until it led them to the attic door. As before, the moment Emma's hand touched the doorknob, the crying stopped. Daniel clicked on a flashlight and climbed the steps, Emma behind him. The attic was mostly empty. Old trunks, cobwebs, dust. But in one corner sat a wooden cradle. It looked ancient, carved with ornate roses and vines. As Daniel moved the light toward it, Emma gasped. Inside the cradle lay an old, moth-eaten blanket. Nothing else. "Is this left from the previous owners?" Daniel asked. "I don't know. I never saw it when we moved in." Emma stepped closer. Her fingers brushed the edge of the cradle, and a sudden cold shot up her arm. They didn't stay in the attic long. The next day, Emma called the real estate agent. "Did anyone ever mention anything unusual about the house?" she asked carefully. There was a pause. "You mean the crying?" Emma's blood went cold. "So it's not just me. There were stories. A family lived there in the 1950s. The baby died in her crib, SIDS, they said. The mother didn't take it well. She disappeared shortly after. Some say she never left. Others think it's the baby's spirit. But they're just stories, Emma. Stories or not, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered in that house. She began to research, digging through local archives. She found an old newspaper article, "Infant Death in Historic Eldridge Home," with a photo of the family. The mother looked eerily familiar. Not in the face but the eyes. Emma stared at the photo for a long time. The woman's expression was hollow, haunted. That night, Emma returned to the attic alone. She brought with her a fresh blanket, a stuffed rabbit, and a soft lullaby music box. She laid them in the cradle gently and whispered, "I don't know who you are, but if you're still here, you're not alone." She sat quietly for a while. The air was cold, but the crying didn't come. When she turned to leave, she thought she heard something, like a soft sigh. And then silence. From that night on, the crying stopped. Weeks passed. Lily grew stronger, started babbling, and eventually took her first wobbly steps across the living room floor. Emma still visited the attic sometimes. She kept it clean, occasionally talking softly as if someone were listening. Daniel teased her for it. "You're like the attic whisperer now." She smiled. Maybe that's all she needed. To be remembered. One spring morning, Emma climbed the attic stairs and found something new. Sitting in the cradle was a single white rose. No vase, no note. Just the rose, fresh and dewy, as if picked moments ago. Emma didn't speak. She only smiled, eyes full of quiet peace. The house on Eldridge Street was quiet again. And if you listened very closely in the night, you wouldn't hear crying anymore. Only the gentle ticking of a music box, and maybe, just maybe, the sound of peace. Thanks for watching.